Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'll make it snappy before you get the juicy bit on video, which will be led by today's guest speaker, James Bryant from Skeleton. He'll tell you a bit more about what he does. This webinar is brought to you by FaceTime, which is an initiative designed to get exhibitors the best results out of their exhibiting investment. I know some of you are already using our free suite of resources, but for those of you who aren't, I really do encourage you to check them out on facetime.org.uk. As you can see listed, we do all sorts of supportive goodies, from training days, free for our members' customers to attend, to exhibitor guides, to videos, to research, and of course webinars. In these tools, you'll find a breadth of topics from budgeting effectively to insights on stand design, to social media strategy, and more. If you need support on any one topic and you can't find it on the website, we'll do our best to seek out the answer for you, so please get in touch. Our upcoming training day is called the National Exhibitor Masterclass, which takes place at the NEC in Birmingham on the 20th of July. If you haven't attended before, please speak to your organizer and find out if you're eligible for a free promo code to attend. You'll be able to learn from a great lineup of speakers on everything from savvy sales techniques to marketing strategy. Finally, the recording will be available to all attendees shortly after this webinar, so don't worry about scribbling everything down. Probably enough from me, so I'll hand it over to you, James.
Thanks, Carmen. Right, good afternoon, everyone. My name's James Bryant, and I'm the Video Strategy Director at Skeleton, a Nottingham-based video production agency that helps businesses and brands to plan, produce, and market their content to their audiences. So we are a very, very results-driven agency, and generally speaking, we help brands to achieve their goals with video. And that involves producing content that engages, inspires, and ultimately compels people to act. Through that specialism, we get to work with, lots of different types of businesses, right from small businesses right up to the well-known ones you see before you right now. But they all have a common thread. They all want to engage their audiences and ultimately compel them to act in some shape or form, more often than not, drawing them down the buying funnel towards the point of purchase. So today, I've been asked by the AO to talk with you a little bit about how some of our clients use video to enhance their event experience, and share some of that experience and expertise with you. To do so, I'm going to be covering a number of things. Firstly, kicking off with why video is potentially so powerful for you, before then moving on to what it takes to have success with video itself. And in doing so, referencing a number of applications of video that you might consider for any upcoming events that you're considering and doing. Of course, if you do have any questions, which is entirely possible, then feel free to ask them throughout. I will be answering those right at the end, if that's okay. But no question is a silly one, as it were. Okay, so let's get started. Why video? It's an important place to start and an important question to answer. Because the reality is that a lot of people love video. And not just any people, your customers. And why is that? As a format, it's a very engaging form of communication. It engages your sight, sound. And when it's done well, it can be a really emotional medium. And that's why it's great for communicating stories. So why is that helpful? Well, every single person on this webinar today will have a story to tell, particularly at the events that you're thinking you either already exhibit at or are thinking of doing so. And it's about, if you want to communicate that kind of story, a story, then video can potentially help you do that. Now, when you use it, there are a couple of reasons specifically how video can help you at said events. One is to kind of enhance or maximize your stand's reach. So the stand that we can see here right now is Accenture's, and as you can see, they've used video walls down the left and down the right to capture the attention of passing prospects. Half the battle is, when we're in an exhibition hall, is to kind of get the attention and make yourself known, because there are literally hundreds of other kind of suppliers trying to do just that, and not just the ones that are direct competitors either. They are ones that it could be a food outlet, for example. So this stand is, it's a big company, but they've done a really great job of capturing the attention of prospects, and they've not just had it down the left and the right, they've also used a very big kind of video wall in the center too. But it's not just about kind of bringing people to your stand. It's also about kind of enhancing the stand experience itself. As an exhibitor, you want to make sure that your stand is as sticky as possible, and it enables prospects to find out about your business, its products and services as easily as possible, and makes that as a pleasurable experience. And due to the popularity of video, it can be a great way of doing that. Okay, now there are three particular applications of video that you may want to consider. The first of which is using video to communicate about your products or services, for that matter. Many of you will have products that, for example, are best demonstrated somewhere else, or that just simply too big to bring along to the event, or that are just impossible to kind of visualize in any other way other than using video or animation. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see three distinct images. The first of which it's a carton closer for Boss Stitch, where we made a video about, we filmed a product video for them, where we filmed in an actual factory where it's best kind of visualized and demonstrated. The middle image is a student from Nottingham University in their Ningbo campus. Obviously, you cannot take a university campus to an event. And the third image is a hammer made by Stanley Black & Decker. And see the inner workings and the inner materials of that hammer. Obviously, you can use animation to demonstrate. And each of those, video is absolutely essential. Now, to show how a product video actually in place, I've got another. The next slide, I'm going to show you a brand film that we produced for a company called, or brand called Defender, who make power and light devices for construction sites. It's something that they've used on video walls. It's something that they've used at events generally to great effect. So, just going to try and load that for you so you can all see. Okay. Now, as you might have noticed, that it's the kind of story that could work just as well without sound as with it. And there's a reason for that, because ultimately in an exhibition environment, there may or may not be sound. So that's quite an important factor. And that's why it was a very kind of text-based narrative. The second application of video that we could be considering is to do with thought leadership. So when when exhibitors are at an event, sometimes some of them will get to kind of do actual talks. And wherever possible, I would suggest that you try and record those talks for the benefit of people that actually attended them, so they can watch the content again, so that the people that didn't manage to kind of attend the talk can actually see that content, and also just for your own kind of content marketing purposes, just to make the most of a potential asset. That content, of course, could be kind of live streamed or made on demand in much the same way I suppose this webinar is working. But I think that if you are looking to do those talks, I would advise that you have a chat with the people that are actually organising any particular event, just to see if there are opportunities to, one, to kind of do these talks, and then secondly, to have them filmed. The third application of video that I'd like to kind of discuss is about kind of filming interviews. Events, well, they bring together a unique kind of mix of people, and it's a distinct opportunity for you. So, particularly at big events, where staff sometimes come from all around the world, or staff that are not necessarily available, or customers that are not available, there's an opportunity for you to actually kind of get those people on camera. And so I would suggest or question, what kind of content could you be capturing at your next event? For example, the imagery that you can see is some work that we recently did for Box. Box actually had their CEO visiting to the UK event, so we got to film him. And equally, on the second clip image, you can see another gentleman who basically was a kind of a customer of Box's, and so we actually got to film them whilst they were at the event too. So it's all about making the most of the opportunity of the people that are actually there. So, as I said, just have a little bit of think about how you can make more of that particular moment. Now, there's always a temptation with video to jump straight in and produce content. And whilst that is tempting, the best results come from a little bit more planning. So we would always recommend that clients think about their video strategy before they dive into any production. And the key elements of a successful video strategy consider what kind of goals and objectives you have, who your audience actually is, the kind of content that you need to produce to ultimately influence them in the way you want, and then lastly, where exactly they're based and how you're going to reach them. I'd like to go through each of those points one by one, if that's okay. So, I hope when all of you are kind of attending events, you have some very clear marketing goals and objectives. And if you don't, I would suggest that you kind of think about having some that are written down, ones that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Because then you can work out precisely what you need, what kind of content you need to achieve them. So this has become the foundation, I suppose, at that point. Then the next assumption is that you know who your target audience actually is. So the more detail you know about your kind of target audience, the better, frankly. So knowing what age they are, what kind of what careers they come from, what they're passionate about, what they care about. Now, typically these kind of take the form of kind of personas. You as a business may have a number of different personas, and it's important to have these in place so that you can work out what kind of content is needed to influence specific audiences. So these two things really, because knowing your audience and knowing what you're trying to achieve is the foundation before you even think about kind of producing content. Now, presuming that you've kind of got those two things in place, You can then start to think about how you want to move a prospect through the kind of the buying funnel. I would imagine that many people have actually heard of kind of the buying funnel before, but it has a top, a middle, and a bottom. And your job as marketeers is to drive prospects down that kind of that funnel towards the point of purchase. And at various stages, you will need content, in whatever shape or form that might be, to help facilitate that progress. Some of that content could or should be video, particularly within the event experience. Each specific piece of content will have particular kind of goals and objectives associated with it. So if you are producing a video, you need to think about what do you want someone to think, feel, or do after they've watched it. Remember, you're producing content to get results. So if you're producing a video to, much like Accenture, for example, on with their video walls, they would have clearly thought through of exactly what they wanted to achieve with that content, and therefore designed it appropriately. I think having that kind of very results focus will enable you to get much better results in itself with the kind of content you're producing. If you don't do this, then the story may meander. The story that you actually do tell does need to be, at the bottom line, needs to be informative and entertaining. At any point with video content, you're trying to engage them and compel them to do something. And to engage someone, you need to think of them as a human. There's a temptation, I think, sometimes for businesses and brands, and we get this all the time, to jam in as many kind of key messages as possible into the story, but not really necessarily thinking about what the actual audience wants to see or learn. It really is a kind of a balance, making sure that you've got your video content that you're producing meets the goals that you're looking to achieve, but at the same time holds the attention of the audience as you tell that story. So, in that context, an event, your videos need to be eye-catching. If they're to draw people into the stand, they may or may not need to work with sound. It's possible in a noisy kind of event experience that any prospect passing by, or even when they're on the stand, may not actually be able to hear what's being played. So you have a choice. In that circumstance, you either produce content that can work without the use of sound, or alternatively, you think about providing headphones so that someone actually on the stand can watch the content with ease. Naturally, duration is also a consideration for the content you produce. If, for example, it's that kind of almost advert-esque content that draws people in, that's going to be fairly short form, because if someone that is ultimately walking past your stand, they're not going to stand there for 10 minutes watching a video. It needs to be some form of hook that draws them onto the stand, and that would probably end up kind of looping quite quickly. So actually, between 30 seconds and a minute may not be totally unreasonable for that kind of content, whereas once someone's onto the stand and they want to find out more, the content could be a little bit longer. Naturally, anything you do produce needs to be on brand. Most stands these days are well designed and with everything kind of tying together. So if you're going to kind of have content, it needs to kind of be produced in that way, because it will sit right alongside it and it'll look completely out of place if you have not kind of produced it on brand. But I doubt anyone would even think about doing that, but it nonetheless is a consideration. Now, with all of those kind of things in place, when you actually do get round to producing content, a well thought out brief is essential. So rather than kind of jumping right into the content production itself, have a little bit of a think about what you want to achieve, who you're aiming the video at, where the video is going to be shown, what the key messages you want to communicate in the video are, what you want people to think, feel, and do after they've watched the content, and having that all down on one piece of paper that you can share amongst you and your colleagues to make sure that everyone is essentially working off the same page. I have included actually a free template, a video briefing template, so if anyone's kind of going through that process and want to know what best practice actually looks like, then feel free to just click on that link and then download the template there. Should be a useful resource either for now or in the future. And really, the final thing really when it comes to with strategy is making sure that you've thought out exactly where you're going to distribute your content. These days, there are a lot more choices. Remember, you're not just kind of talking about kind of your stand. You're also thinking about, or should be thinking about, using this content throughout your marketing generally. And with any given brand or business, obviously they will reach their audience in different ways. Their audience will be hanging out on different channels more than others. So it'll be very much up to yourselves to kind of consider where that is. Typically, with respect to kind of B2B or businesses, that's usually places like LinkedIn, whereas B2C, it's Facebook. Both of which, both B2B and B2C, typically use channels like YouTube and Twitter. But as I say, it will come down to kind of the particular business. How you end up kind of sending that content out is also worth considering, because actually each of those channels will have different formats that you should try and adhere to with that kind of video content. For example, on Facebook, many people that actually watch Facebook videos or who actually engage with Facebook are doing so through their mobile and not have the sound on. So if you do have content being distributed through Facebook, think about having a kind of a text-based narrative so that actually people will understand what you're saying without actually having to have that the audio on. So I've obviously referenced a number of channels there that are not relevant specifically to an event experience, or so you might think. The reality is, though, that an event is not just for the event. There is a before, a during, and an after. And if you haven't thought about it before, there should be kind of content marketing that you're doing across that kind of that kind of schedule, building up, I suppose, or jumping on top of perhaps the marketing that the event organizer is already doing it, with also promoting how you're going to be present during that kind of event. But then afterwards, thinking about how you can follow it up. So to give you an example, let's say during the event you were doing some thought leadership presentations. Obviously, after the event, where possible, you should be trying to make the most of those by actually distributing them both to the people that actually did attend, and then secondly to people that didn't. And so by doing so, making more of the event itself. In and around the event, I suppose that there is always kind of that build up and pre and post. There are pre and post opportunities. It's also worth considering that content will inherently have a lifetime value. So when clients come to us and commission content, they usually think of video, how they'll be using video throughout their business. An event will be just one potential kind of route that they'll want to explore, and so they'll make sure that they produce it in the right format. But there's no reason why that couldn't be used in other places. and can be done so for a considerable amount of time. People frequently use, for example, content on their websites, on plasma screens, on all the different kind of social channels. So it can be kind of making content can be represent a good ROI really, and you can really kind of make content last. Okay, well, I mean that's pretty much it in terms of a summary really of the opportunities associated with video for an event experience. But I would stress that if you want to do it well, you need to have a good strategy to back that up, and that's all about kind of knowing what you want to achieve, knowing who you're actually aiming the content at, and tailoring it accordingly, before then kind of distributing it in the places where they spend their time, and of course creating content across the whole buying funnel, which both communicates what you want to, but also what the audience is wanting to hear too. If you do want to find out about more how to kind of write a strategy, there's another kind of free template here that you can download. It's a step-by-step guide associated with doing so. And that brings to a close the presentation. So if you have any questions, then this is the point to ask.
That's brilliant. Thanks, James. Really insightful, and I hope everybody has taken at least a few key learnings they'll be able to implement at the next show or around the next show. Are there any questions?
I've got one here actually. It's about kind of talking about whether the balance between decision whether to kind of use animation or video, and to answer that question, it will very much depend about the business that you are and what you're trying to achieve with that content. As I mentioned with the product demonstration videos, sometimes it's useful to use animation to visualize things that you couldn't do in any other way, or perhaps use animation to as an advert almost, as to draw people into the stand, much the same way that kind of Accenture was, if you remember right at the beginning of the presentation, showcasing on those video walls. That is all animation. Video is more often than not a lot more of a kind of an emotive medium. It all depends what you're trying to do with content.
Brilliant. Okay. I've just seen someone wants to know if they're able to receive the slides afterwards. The recording will be available to all attendees soon after this webinar. James, are you happy for me to distribute the slides?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a problem at all.
Okay. All right. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you so much once again, James, and thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in this afternoon. See you on the next one.